Dreaming has long been our way of living out another reality, and though we may do it frequently, there's still an air of mystery surrounding it.
Sure, we may create our own theories and build off of trends we observe from a dreaming subject, but science still has much to understand about why we dream. But the science aspect of it all isn't what we'll be covering in today's Grim Gallery. That's not what this series is about. Instead, we'll be taking a deeper look into the different interpretations of the fabled creatures said to grant us our dreams.
Greetings everyone, and welcome to the Grim Gallery. The most popular rendition of the Sandman is based on an old German legend called Der Sandman.
In it, he is described as a wicked man who visits children that refuse to go to bed. The story goes that he would throw a handful of sand in their faces, causing their eyes to bleed out of their heads, and would then store the eyes in a bag. It is said that he'd bring the stolen eyes up to his nest on the crescent moon, feeding them to his own children. These children are described to possess owl-like beaks, suited for picking at the lost eyes of naughty human children.
However, there are several legends of entities that go by the name Sandman.
According to the creepypasta of the same name, the Sandman is an entity which grants wishes and takes memories from people. It has the ability to lend parts of itself to its victims to create new temporary life forms, though it always returns to take those parts back eventually. It's described as a naked man with impossibly lank and twisted features, moving in sudden and disjointed ways. Another creepypasta called The Sandman Phenomena describes a creature that makes you forget its appearance but retain the memory of encountering it. This rendition of the Sandman stalks its victims over a long period of time, slowly making its presence known to the victim. It is said that when you wake up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, the Sandman was just in your room, observing you. As he continues to stalk you, you begin to develop insomnia and a difficulty falling asleep in the night. During hours of sleep, you might experience sleep paralysis, and he might use this as an opportunity to drain you of your life energy.
Your logical side will tell you that you're experiencing night terrors and hallucinations as a result of being conscious while being asleep. But what if that's not the case? The earliest legends of what we currently call the Sandman can be found in ancient Greek mythology.
Morpheus, the Lord of Dreams, was said to visit the mortal realm from the underworld every night, passing on prophetic visions to sleepers.
There didn't seem to be anything particularly malevolent about him then.
But by the end of the 17th century, the legend of Morpheus had gone through a few alterations to better match the Christian dichotomy of good versus evil in northern and central Europe.
The Germans saw this being as a beckoning demon, a sinister visitor in the night.
Children who fell under his spell and promptly went to sleep were judged as good and obedient, but children who fought the effects of his magic dust risked a sentence of mutilation, a life of torturous nightmares, or even death. This description from the 17th century very accurately describes the creepypasta version of the Sandman. Perhaps there is more validity to the creepypasta story than meets the eye. The legend of the Sandman was perpetuated in every household with children, as parents would use the story as a means to get their children to rest promptly at night. This was during a time when child labor was viewed as a more socially accepted and practical means of free labor, and was commonly viewed to maximize contribution to a family's income. The better rested the little workers were, the more they could contribute to the family's ultimate survival. In 1816, German novelist Ernst Theodor Amadeus Hoffmann would end up solidifying this more sinister rendition of the character in his popular work, Der Sandman. In it, he describes the version of the Sandman that plucks the eyes out of naughty children.
Not all were keen on the more gruesome German version of Morpheus.
One such children's author of Danish descent saw to it that a gentler, more congenial version of Morpheus be worked into the mythos and brought to the New World. This author was Hans Christian Andersen, considered by some to be the father of modern bedtime storytelling, and writer of other classic fairy tales like The Little Mermaid, Thumbelina, and The Ugly Duckling.
In his version, rather than gouge out the eyes of naughty children who refused to sleep, the Sandman would simply withhold their dreams.
It is Andersen's version of the Sandman that we see permeate through pop culture. It's Andersen's Sandman that is sung about in the classic 1950s song Mr. Sandman by the Chordettes. It's Andersen's Sandman who is sung about in Roy Orbison's In Dreams, where he sings the words, "Go to sleep, everything will be alright." And it's Andersen's non-threatening Sandman seen in DreamWorks' 2012 Rise of the Guardians. Other stories of the Sandman claim that there are more than just one, and each person may have their own personal Sandman, with abilities ranging from giving people the dreams that they want, to giving them power over their own dreams, to even granting them a glimpse into their own future. However, there do exist several decidedly darker modern takes on the legend that bring it closer to its more sinister roots. Take for example Metallica's hit rock anthem Enter Sandman in 1991, or graphic novelist Neil Gaiman's wildly popular Sandman series.
We've also seen a surge of creepypasta stories and urban legends online which point to a darker rendition of the Sandman.
Remember the creepypasta stories from earlier? Apparently, there is another creature bearing the name Sandman, but this creature is very different. It is described as having the decaying and discolored skin of a corpse, extremely long fingers, and many sharp teeth. Some say that this creature is the evil brother of the good Sandman, that this Sandman hides just out of sight in the dark and whispers the words tick-tock, tick-tock to its unlucky victim, hypnotizing them into a deep sleep. Once asleep, the Sandman is said to come out of hiding, to devour the sleeper with its sharp teeth. But this is just a work of fiction, it isn't real. However, is it possible that the story could have taken its inspiration from similar real-life paranormal events? Could perhaps this particularly sinister creature be a real paranormal occurrence masquerading as the Sandman? In my search for Sandman experiences, I could not find any reports of actual sightings. One search result did, however, bring up an interesting interview with the man behind Wrinkles the Clown. For those who don't know, Wrinkles was one of the countless creepy clown sightings that took place across the United States in 2016.
I just want to have fun and, have a good time, make a little extra money on the side, have a little fun before I die.
In response to a question about the inspiration for Wrinkles, the man had this to say: "No matter where you were from, there is some story about that guy that will get you if you're being bad. When I was a kid, I was scared to death of the Sandman. My father told me that if I stayed out past the time the streetlights came on, the Sandman would get me, and I'd never see the light of day again." While I can't attest to those who have claimed to have seen things late in the night, I do personally doubt that the Sandman exists, at least in the capacity of these stories. It was common in earlier centuries to hear folk tales depicting terrible night creatures, and I think it's the general belief that these were primarily crafted to encourage children to behave properly.
In the case of Der Sandman, this would have been to go to bed.
Also, considering that I don't personally sleep much during the night, I can say that I've not yet met the Sandman myself. Have I been weirded out and felt creepy vibes alone in the dark late in the night? Absolutely. But encounters with a Sandman? Not to my knowledge. Then again, the legends did describe this particular entity as one with the power to alter a victim's memory of itself. So that brings me to ask, what do you think? Is the Sandman really out there, terrorizing insomniacs to be? Or is he just the result of classical bedtime storytelling and creepypasta writing?
I mean, it's all based on bedtime stories and creepypastas, works of fiction, so it can't be real, right?
Whether you choose to believe or not is entirely up to you. However, the world is a dark and mysterious place, and there is evermore an infinite plethora of the world for us to explore.
Remember, though we may fear the unknown, we live every day to better learn and understand these fears, and in doing so, we may gain a better insight into understanding ourselves. Thank you for watching, and good night.
And the comment of the week goes to Morty Sanchez, who says, "I own so many books on Japanese mythology. It's my favorite thing to read about. I know about the Mujina. The video was pretty accurate. Thank you for that. Some tend to not get this kind of stuff right, thus confusing yokai for another yokai. Good video. Thanks for posting." Thank you very much for that sweet, sweet comment. I very much appreciate those kinds. As always, if you'd like to leave a comment and possibly get featured in a future episode, please feel free to do so right now. Hey, did you like that video? If you did, be sure to let me know by hitting the like button down below. And hey, while you're at it, why not subscribe to catch more episodes of the Grim Gallery? Click on the left painting to go to a playlist full of other Grim Gallery episodes. Or, if you're looking for something different, click on the right painting to go to an episode of my other series, Darkology, where I talk about whether science could create a being like Cell from Dragon Ball Z. I've had a few people ask why the view count is so low for this series, and honestly, a lot of it has to do with the fact that nobody knows that it exists. Help me spread the word by sharing it. I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, let me know what you think about this series so far, and if you have any topics you'd like to see me cover in a future episode, down in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.